and thanks for tuning back in. I'm Jersey Prophet. Really excited tonight. A whole lot of inspiration hit, and I have a ton of videos that I want to put out over the next few days. But if I learned anything from Ryan Cohen of GameStop, it's don't talk about it, be about it. Just do what you're going to do, and don't make all sorts of promises, and just do it. So a lot of it being centered around my experience in academia as a professor of psychology. I've developed this reputation as a ranting lunatic of a professor, but that my students really seem to enjoy. I actually saved all of cards and notes and things like that that my students have given me over the years. These mean the absolute world to me. The Egyptian papyrus behind me was a gift from a foreign exchange student from Egypt. So that brings me to tonight. I just wanted to put out a short video on one specific point of discussion, and that is why I was able to, out of nowhere, come up with, let's just say 15 ideas for this channel out of seemingly nowhere. But then I struggle for 2 hours to sit down and talk to you on a camera. The reason for that is attention deficit disorder. It has become such a common diagnosis. It's almost like in one ear and out the other. It is for me too. So let's get one thing out of the way right away. Attention deficit disorder, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but our almost exclusive method of treating that condition is through pharmaceutical interventions. And the stimulants used, which, full disclosure, I have never taken a stimulant drug such as Adderall or Ritalin. I've never taken them. I have no doubt that they help people. Without question, I'm sure that they do. The reason that I've never taken them is that I know myself. I've been in recovery for over 10 years. I'm very in tune with myself, and I don't trust myself with something that I think I would like too much. So to the outside world who just keeps hearing this term, attention deficit disorder, it's probably sort of worn itself out. People may have compassion fatigue, or they may see it as if their brain doesn't work that way, then maybe they see it as something less significant than it is, or whatever the case may be. Who knows how the outside world perceives. I know that how I perceive ADHD my entire life. Now, I'm 38 years old, and I was diagnosed when I was in 3rd grade. That was in the 90s. But the thing is, there's a reason that we don't reveal IQ tests to children. The reason we don't tell them is the reason that I don't think children should be informed that they are being diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, good, bad, or indifferent. If you tell a child that they're intelligent, that may affect them. They may have different expectations on themselves, or they may not try as hard, or they may try too hard. If you tell a child that they're less than intelligent, what is that going to do? When it's empirically proven that if a teacher has faith in their students, that has a empirical positive effect on those students' academic performance. Just knowing that the teacher believes in them, the students perform better on average. What does it do to a child who then doubts themselves? How powerful is that then? So I don't think that we should tell children that they're anything but themselves. As an adult now, having been through first being a high school dropout, school and me were oil and water. I hated school. I've also, as an adult, later in my life, been through my undergraduate. I was first in my class in graduate school, rising to the level that I have in my professional career, overseeing multiple mental health programs at a shelter for homeless veterans, to becoming a finalist for Professor of the Year, nominated by my students. That was the only thing that happened during COVID. Thank God that happened during COVID. That was a very difficult time of my life, running a homeless shelter through the worst of the 2020 pandemic. And I was by myself because my partner was deployed in the Middle East, had his own world to deal with. If I were to ask you where in that story does attention deficit disorder fall in, the dropout part, right? But it's in the other part too. It's in the professor part. It's in the master's degree. It's in the highest title that my position can be with the state government. It's in my accomplishments too. As an adult now, looking back, I realized that yes, the psych professor understands the categorization of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But you know what? From a much more humanistic place, this is just my brain. This is just how I've always thought and always will think. It's the way my brain functions. The point of tonight's video is, Duncan Trussell, one of my favorite modern hippie philosophers. If you haven't seen it, he made Midnight Gospel on Netflix, which is the best thing on Netflix. Smoke a bowl and watch Midnight Gospel. You're welcome. And paraphrasing here a little bit, he gave me one of my favorite quotes, referring to the psychedelic experience. And he says, basically, you come face to face with the source of love itself, fully embraced by the source of everything. You're just fully savagely loved by this thing. And you get a glimpse of that. And he said, and that's what true healing is. It's realizing you were never sick in the first place. You just told yourself you were. Attention deficit disorder is handed to us as a disadvantage somehow, negative somehow. If it's not, then why do we need to treat it? Why do we treat it like a headache to be neutralized out with a pill? Why isn't it embraced? Attention deficit disorder could be seen as an advantage. What we could be doing is running studies on how can attention deficit disorder, differently abled brains handle different problem solving. What does it provide any sort of strength? I can't pinpoint what aspects of my life I can specifically credit to the way that my brain constantly shifts. I know that it has. Mental health in our country sucks. I don't think anybody would argue that. Availability, affordability, effectiveness, resistance to new forms of treatment. There are things that are going well, but there are things we could do better. And one of them is looking at things like attention deficit disorder. If your child is diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, okay, we've identified a way that their brain works. You need to know that it's going to be really hard for them in school, that they're going to get in trouble, that they're going to fight with you about going to school, about doing their homework. And how could you do poorly on the quiz? We stayed up studying for an hour on that. Because you have absolutely no idea how nearly impossible it is, potentially. I don't know your hypothetical kid, but from my life experience, because you have no idea how hard it might have been for your child to latch on to what you were saying in that hour without it just going by like on a conveyor belt. It's very difficult for thought to enter, thought to be dealt with, thought to be categorized, thought to be moved on from to the next logical step. That's very difficult. That's just not how our brains work. My brain, I can't speak for anyone else. I'm assuming that it's a similar experience for other people. You know how sometimes with your phone, depending on what you select for the focus of the image, the background goes blurry. But then when you move it to a new focal point, that comes into focus and the background gets blurry, etc. That's how I would describe the way that my brain works, is that a thought comes into focus for a length of time, and then without my control, that camera moves to another focal point and things go blurry. But I have found ways to work with that. And that's why I'm able to deal with what I do. Anything I'm about to say is not from a place of bragging or ego, but to illustrate the challenges that I have as someone with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I have to deal with both of my children going in two separate directions in the morning, a wife going in a third direction. I have to worry about the maintenance of her vehicle, the food that they're going to eat when they wake up. I know that other people have these things too. Just let me compound onto this. Then you arrive at work. I'm the assistant superintendent. Think of it as very similar to an assistant principal of a high school. And you would be thinking along the right lines, except instead of students, we're dealing with homeless veterans and mental health and addiction. Okay. But not far off from a school. We even have classes throughout the day. All 3 mental health programs, all the staff, all the residents. I also teach on top of this. And in this job, there's no to-do list except the one that you create. You have to walk around. You have to figure out, when's the last time I got inspected? What would happen if I had a fire? It's the winter right now. I'm thinking about power outages. Where would people go? Well, how would that be accomplished? What can I get out in front of? There's nothing written down. And then all throughout the day, on top of that, you have 2 staff members fighting, and 100%, they bring it to you, 100% of it. Then you have resident and staff fighting, and then you have resident and resident arguing. And because in a residential setting, there's going to be arguments. There just are too many personalities in one space all the time. So you're managing all of that. You're managing, when's the last time I gave a quiz? Did I write the quiz? When do I need to assign the quiz? Do I need to their homework? Getting home, what am I going to make for dinner? When do I go to the grocery store? How do I mow the lawn before the sun sets and spend time with my kids and help with their homework and do the dishes after you make dinner and make sure they have everything laid out for bed and be a decent husband that's emotionally available to his wife and be a human being with hobbies and interests or run a YouTube channel. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and that is the reason that sorry, but a little self-love right now. I'm on top of it. I'm exhausted all the time, emotionally and physically drained, but I'm good at it. The reason that I'm good at it is attention deficit disorder. I don't think I could do this without it. I have too many things to shift from, and attention deficit disorder allows me to do that. If I was stuck on any one channel, I'd be dropping balls. Does that make sense? I need to shift my focus on many things, not one thing. And I can't do that if my brain didn't work the way that it did. If you have been diagnosed as having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, maybe you don't have anything. Maybe there's nothing wrong with you. If that's how you thought about yourself, like I did. If you're like me, you inherited that toxic way of looking at yourself. Show yourself some self-love. Maybe just recognize that you were never sick in the first place. Reject that program, even if we were told subconsciously. Because again, if there was nothing wrong with us, then why do we need medication? Why do we need to be treated? Why are we distinguished by this way that our brains work? Show yourself some self-love. Maybe the way that your brain works has benefited you, and maybe it can benefit you even more if you go from this adversarial perspective to an embracing perspective. This is how your brain works. Stop swimming against the current and learn how to kayak down the rapids with it. Whatever that means for you, if it does at all. If you're trying to force your brain into a very certain box, then no, you're never going to fit the way other functioning brains work because you're not them. I don't know. To me, I see it as a star peg and wondering why all the cylindrical pegs just keep going through the cylindrical hole. And then when you can't fit the star through it, it's like you want to pull out power tools and reshape the star. The star fits through the star pegs. You know, in Silicon Valley, their microdosing is extremely in fashion because it enhances creativity. The overwhelming majority of people use what they create. They consume, but they innovate. And in order to innovate, to imagine things that don't exist, technologies that don't exist, they know that supercharging their creativity gives them an advantage. They're understanding that different brain states, different pathologies, different mental processes get different results. If you are, or your child is a person whose brain functions like mine does, what they call attention deficit disorder. There's probably some advantages to that. Try to be forgiving of yourself or of your child. And instead of seeing it as anything wrong, see it as a potential gift if used properly. Cool. Enjoy your evening. Thanks for tuning in. Listen, I have about 15 topics that I'm really looking forward to doing. I'm just having a really good time with you guys and really enjoying making these videos. So stick around if you want. Check out the next ones. And of course, topics are going to go everywhere from investing and GameStop, AMC, and all that, and crypto, to video games, to movies, to all kinds of stuff. So see you guys tomorrow, and thanks for tuning in.